started as I usually do. If you have a cell phone, please turn it off or silence it. I will call to order the regular City Commission meeting for the Oregon City Commission for Wednesday, February 19th, 2020. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith. Here. Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Denise McGriff is absent this evening. And Mayor Dan Holliday.
Here. Please stand and join me in the flag salute.
Everything else was okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, under ceremonies, proclamations, and presentations, I know I've had a couple of people from the community question me about the special announcement. I am sad to report that our finance director, Wyatt Parno, is resigning effective, I believe, June 30th. And on the positive note, we'll be taking over at South Fork Water Board to replace John Collins, who is retiring. So while we lose the expertise of Mr. Parno and his more than fantastic performance as our finance director, he took us from, I don't know, I would say the 80s and moved us into the 21st century pretty seamlessly. And for people to do things like do a complete software rollout, which we have seen at both state and Portland and other places have been unmitigated disasters. It was almost unfelt here in Oregon City. So I want to thank Mr. Parno for his great service here. Wish him luck and happy to continue to work with him as the vice chair and next year chair of South Fork Water Board. So now we have, did you want to say anything?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Mayor and Commissioners, but I'll keep it really brief. It's very humbling and an honor to be able to step into that role. I'm so excited. I have loved the time that I've spent with Oregon City, and the best part about the whole thing is I'm still going to be in Oregon City serving the citizens and the commission here and being able to work with the board members. Nothing but amazing things to say about this community, and it's going to be a wonderful opportunity to serve on the mission of providing a critical life resource of water for folks. I'm super excited. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on, 20-096, Downtown Oregon City Association biannual update. Mr. Conkle.
Thank you, Mayor. We have representatives from the Downtown Oregon City Association to give their update.
It was not my agenda. It said you, so that's who I asked for.
We're good to go.
We're eager here. I'm Liz Hannum from Portland, the executive director for the Downtown Oregon City Association.
And I'm Zach Stokes, Oregon City. I'm the president of the Downtown Oregon City Association. Thank you for having us tonight for our update.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about, we've done a couple of presentations recently, so I wanted to keep this one fairly quick. But I wanted to start with just a reiteration of what Main Street is and the model that we use to continue to revitalize and redevelop and placemake in Oregon City, downtown Oregon City. We've talked several times about we are placemaking, we're not place-made, so it continues to go on forever and ever. But the Main Street model is a national group. There's 2,200 Main Streets in America, and we're an affiliate of the national program as well as the state program. And they use this 4-point approach to everything that's downtown. So economic vitality, design, organization, and promotion. So we really try to work all of our programming within those 4 points so that we're hitting all aspects of the downtown and really taking a holistic approach to developing downtown. So we just finished the MOU recently, and so I just wanted to go through kind of the public facing side of it and just let you know how far along we are if we started July, so the 7 months that we've been working on this. So I picked the 6 kind of public-facing ones to talk about, and we're working on the street tree light program. Obviously, that we're working on kind of making it a more sustainable program. Maintenance is ongoing, trucks and power source and water and all that stuff. So we're working on really making it sustainable for the long term. Managing the Oregon Main Street Revitalization Grant. We have 2 of those grants. One will close in June of this year, and that was how we supported the opening of White Rabbit Black Ink with that grant. And there's just a few little things left, some lighting initiatives to help with some pedestrian safety issues on the railroad side and as well as Main Street. In 2019, grant work will begin on Coin Corner this year, which we're really excited about. There's a new facade. We actually went poking a couple weeks ago, and we found some transom windows, which is really exciting. The original glass is in there. So hopefully we can get those up and running later this year. And then the 2021 grant will open in January, so coming up, but we're gonna start work on that October, November. Oregon City can only submit 1 application, so we're gonna collect them and go through an internal process first. So our active representation from city-led initiatives like tourism and TDM, you heard from the TDM group today. We've been really active on that. We have a couple of board members that sit on that as well as myself, and we're very vocal in that group because we see use every day and can talk about things like, hairdressers who take 2 to 3 hours. They have lots of clients that are running out with foil in their hair, trying to move their car. So those are the things that we talk about. We're pushing things like the low-hanging fruit solutions, a better management plan, so that we can save our money, save our pennies for bigger things in the future. So better management up in front. And then initiatives like our tourism plan. This year we hosted the Travel Oregon Road Rally, which was really fun. We had 40 travel agents from 9 countries come and enjoy a scavenger hunt in downtown that we put together, and then had a party with them and got to really know them, which is exciting because we've actually seen clients of theirs come through already. So, and the next 3 are, we had to execute 5 events or promotions, and we've obviously well exceeded that already this year. We love our events, and we really wanted to start working on some of the more promotional side, not just events. So this year we decided to do a welcome to downtown packet for the new Cove residents, which is really exciting. We had 36 businesses participate. They each gave us kind of a little business card or a discount card that we put in a packet for all of the residents there, which is pretty exciting to work. And we actually are starting to build a relationship with the management company there. So that's pretty exciting. They just bought a bunch of tickets to the wine walk in May. So, and then cross-promoting the Travel Oregon City for tourism events. This one we probably need a little work on. So we're continuing to use that, but we're going to work with tourism and with communications to figure out which ones are better to tag, since all of our stuff, some of it's targeted towards residents and some of it's targeted outside. So we're going to continue to work on that. And then providing letters of support and attending meetings and sharing data. We do that on a daily basis, but just to give you an example, I've written 9 letters of support for grants that the city has put through. And I think you're going to hear about maybe 1 or 2 of them tonight that they were granted. So those are kind of the big kind of overwhelming public side of things. There were 4 other kind of points that will continue to work on or have hit already. So again, placemaking, not place-made. So there's more work to do. So I'll let you.
So over the next year, 12 months, we've been in a situation where there's been a lot of change in the organization. We've discussed that in prior board meetings. It's affected, especially in 2019, our ability to feel really great about our volunteer base and our engagement in the community and the buy-in from the local community, the businesses, the property owners, and all of that has been expressed and shared with the commission. And for our 5-year plan, what we've identified is we want a strong retail district, a healthy organization, and an engaged community. So for 2020, what we're focusing on is developing that community engagement portion. Before we have that, it's going to be really hard to have a strong retail district or a healthy organization. That's kind of ground step number one, rebooting a little bit, if you will, with respect to engaging the community, getting a good volunteer base, having opportunities for people to participate so that we can springboard into 2021 and really start supporting retail initiatives and do more project work when we have a larger base surrounding us. So that's the snapshot, increase volunteers, community engagement, and then fundraising to continue to diversify our funding sources.
I'll go back one. So we're working on different ways that people can engage in the organization. And so one of the ways that we really are kind of excited about that's very low commitment is downtown dinners. So starting March 3rd, and you're all invited to come, we're inviting the entire community to have dinner with us downtown. So every Tuesday we'll move to a different restaurant and you'll just come have dinner with us or a drink or whatever price point you're looking for, and just meet new people, engage, find out what the organization is about if you want, and spend a little money downtown. So that's just one of our easy ways to get committed and build that kind of community pride. So that's a quick one.
Where is it going to be?
It's going to be at Mesa Fresca on Tuesday, March 3rd at 6 p.m. So that'll be the first one.
I'd be happy to host a couple times a year.
I'm sorry?
I'd be happy to host a couple times a year if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Questions?
I have one.
Commissioner Rachel Smith.
I guess more of a comment. I would just say maybe when you get your community engagement or how you want to reach your volunteers a little more narrow or focused, if you're trying to focus on specific events or something like that, I would just encourage you to continue giving presentations to our Citizen Involvement Committee and request the neighborhood chairs if you can give a presentation. Obviously a presentation that's general in nature, you may not get too much response, but when you have something specific that says, hey, we have these events coming up, we're looking for volunteers to do X, Y, and Z, it would be a good chance to interact with our citizenry through our neighborhood associations.
Okay, great.
That's great feedback. Thank you.
Commissioner Noel?
I have nothing to add.
Okay. I have just a couple things. Today I was in Troutdale for the they call it a super session of the East Metro Realtors Association.
Oh, yeah.
There were 4 of us mayors there, Mayor Bemis from Gresham, myself. My fellow mayors will be insulted, but I can't remember. The other 2 are brand new, so in less than a year. But one of the things that Mayor Bemis and Gresham did over the last 10 years is they have a program called Garage to Storefront. Mm-hmm. And I would encourage you and Mr. Graham, the new economic development guy, to reach out to Gresham and understand that program and then bring it back to us, because it's a program where they take people who are entrepreneurs who are starting businesses in their homes, and what it does is it allows them to get into a storefront, minus all of the SDCs and the other things that have been paid, and it's been a huge success for Gresham. And I think, I'm not sure how many storefronts do we have that are open downtown. Some
3, 4 maybe at this point. And actually, same wavelength, actually. Victoria, the new director for the chamber, and I have been working on something similar and talking through ideas of how we could do that, and figuring out where our funding source could be for that. And so we are actually already thinking through.
So I would encourage you to reach out to Mayor Bemis' staff. Yeah. He told me they'd be more than happy to help you guys and work through whatever details and give you, if they've already built the car, there's no point in building another one from scratch. So,
awesome.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Public Works Grant update. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. So there's a presentation with this one as well. You have that one coming up.
Yep.
So just update on mostly transportation grants, because that's where most of the grant funding is at anymore these days. So real quick, go through that. We've been busy over the last year and successful over the last year with many grant programs. Tonight we'll give you an overview of the grants that Public Works has been able, that we've been working on and been able to obtain. Dana Webb, by the way, is the one who is going to present this tonight. She's our city engineer. She's out sick today, so I'm not going to do nearly as good a job as she would have done with this, because she knows these numbers much more intensely, and she's been much more involved in actually obtaining the grants. So anyway, these are 4 grants that we've so far been pursuing and been successful with, and I'll talk through each one of them in detail next. So all roads, transportation, safety, Mayor, they all have acronyms with them, by the way. So the ARTS grant is something that is focused squarely on safety. In fact, it's data driven. It's an ODOT grant program, and they look pretty closely at fatal crashes and property damage crashes with high incidence of damage. And they analyze that data, and then really those projects are identified regionally, and then from those they often actually reach out to the agency and say, hey, this is one that we think is important for you to pursue. And in this case, we've got $1.2 million project cost, and the grant will cover $1 million worth of that. We've got about a $100,000 grant match to support that on the city side. And just a quick graphic of where that's at, this project is about signal improvements along Beaver Creek Road. And this is the graphic that kind of shows you. It goes from Maple Lane, all the signals through to Warner Milne Road. And I'll talk more specifics about what those are, but a couple things. The other red box on Highway 213, if you remember from the alternate mobility study, there was some recommendations for safety improvements. That location there would be a signal warning or congestion ahead kind of warning sign that you would see, that you typically see on interstate and state highways. And then the other thing is radar detection. It's not speed radar detection on the east and westbound lanes, but instead of loop detection, it'll be radar detection at those locations as well.
What do you mean by that?
So vehicle detection. So when they detect vehicles, which lane they're in, how far backed up they are in the turn lanes or the through lanes, that'll all be detected by radar versus what you traditionally see, which is a loop that's cut into the pavement. So
so to help improve traffic mobility.
This whole project's about helping to improve, yes.
It's not giving speeding tickets.
It's not about giving speeding tickets, you're right.
Nor will it.
Right.
We won't let Jim hijack our...
Don't worry about that, I got that fully covered.
So what does this entail? Signal controller upgrades throughout for all those signals. You've probably seen in other jurisdictions where they have we have a couple of them as well already, but the reflective yellow on the backside of the signal head itself, and then signal interconnect by way of fiber, so complete the fiber connection that would be from signal to signal, but also provide connectivity back to the Clackamas County. Clackamas County manages a lot of our signals, so they'll have that in their war room, if you will, to be able to oversee signal timing and make signal adjustments straight from their desktops.
Say that again, slowly.
the county manages our signals.
Yes.
And they manage signal timing. They provide most of our signal maintenance. So with the signal interconnect, the work that will happen under this project, they will also have desktop control of our signals, all these signals. So they will be able to monitor those signals from afar, adjust timing as needed. I don't know that they're monitoring it all the time, but troubleshoot those when troubles are called in. So that's the kind of...
So what's the security feature there?
Oh boy.
Because
I don't know that.
That scares the hell out of me, by the way.
They do it all over this county, so that's...
Yeah, I know. And how many movies have we seen where some hacker takes over and they crush everybody into each other? I'm just saying, I would like you to update me on what kind of security features there are. I would rather that be air gap.
We will differentiate the fact from the fiction on that.
All right, thank you.
I thought he was worried about facial identification.
Nah. I'm way too old for that. All right, moving on.
All right, so again, this is a result of the alternate mobility target. It was a recommendation that we do a better job. A lot of the accidents at the Highway 213 and Beaver Creek intersection, for the most part, are rear end accidents, right? And they happen in daylight, they happen with dry pavement, and they're really just folks not paying attention. So having signal ahead warning sign here will be helpful. Whether this is the exact configuration, not yet to be determined yet, but we've done a lot of look and recognize that kind of an improvement will be helpful. The other thing that this intersection is going to get, which I think is interesting, and I may not do a great job describing it, but it's called the Advanced Dilemma Zone Detection System. So signals are getting smarter and smarter all the time. The controllers are top notch, but they may be susceptible to hijack. We'll find that out for sure. But this is, as you know, this is a large intersection. A lot of traffic moves through this intersection. Drivers not typically, at times misjudge their ability to get through this intersection without going through on a red light, right? This smart detection device will recognize that vehicle, recognize the speed at which it's moving, and delay the opposing traffic green light enough for them to get through that intersection. Now, we don't want to share that with all our red light runners.
Which I just did, by the way.
Hopefully they'll forget by the time the intersection goes in. But the whole idea is about creating a safer, more efficient intersection and improved travel time through that intersection. All right, so that's ARTS. That's the ARTS grant. Transportation System Management and Operations, TSMO, is the other grant that we got. This is another grant that we pursued with the county. So the county was the applicant. They received $820,000 grant. Of that, $113,000 will go towards Oregon City and will improve our other intersections. So between what we've done at 12th and Washington, what we're doing on Malala Avenue with the what we'll hope to be doing on Malala Avenue with the signal interchange improvements on that corridor, and then the Beaver Creek project that I just talked about, that leaves about 10 intersections for us. No, that leaves about 16 intersections, signalized intersections, where we'll be upgrading signal controllers on as well. So again, more improvements focused on vehicle and pedestrian safety and efficiency. So you're familiar with Regional Flexible Fund Allocations, RFFA. That's the grant program that we use to fund the Malala Avenue project. This is a project that has seen a lot of community support. It is really focused on active transportation as well as freight and economic development projects that support social equity, improve safety, and implement climate smart strategies in managing congestion. So for our project, the goal is to close the gap and provide safe pedestrian and bicycle access along Highway 99E between 10th and the 99E tunnel, and provide complete street design for McLaughlin Boulevard, which includes improvements likely on both sides of the roadway, although a point was made last night at the Transportation Advisory Committee that there's less need for improvements on the the downtown side versus the riverside. They'd like to see more project, kind of like what we have in phase 1 of the McLaughlin Boulevard project. So we hope to follow through with the 2005 McLaughlin Boulevard plan and do a better job of moving pedestrians from really north to the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. The challenges there are many, as you know, having used that area a lot, but this grant gets us through concept conversations, so there's public involvement involved with how we might look at the corridor and think about ways to move traffic, get us to a 30% design, and I'll talk about some of the challenges to that, but this work will include, I mentioned it already, but public involvement, and I'm interested in any of your thoughts about how we can do a better job with more public involvement that's meaningful and informative to how we finish that project. Here's the limits of that project. So again, 10th to 99E. That 99E end, I think, is mostly focused on trying to connect the existing railroad tunnel to the Willamette Falls Legacy Project. But the rest of it is really pretty focused on the waterfront and dealing with the elevated bridge section of McLaughlin Boulevard, which many people don't even realize exists. So I've got some pictures of that. These are all photos that you're familiar with, but it's really trying to enhance those walkways. If you think about the one picture we don't show here is the Highway 43 Oregon City Westland Bridge. You know, there's a real narrow gap along there just to get from one side to the other side along 99E. It's about a 4 or 5 foot wide sidewalk and right adjacent to the travel lane there. So, you know, I would expect the community to think big, something that might even cantilever out over the water or be more of a waterfront kind of a path like what we might see in other jurisdictions or other areas around the state. So again, we hope this opportunity would be another keynote project for the city that everybody would be proud of. We talked a little bit earlier about just transit and state. So this is a statewide transportation improvement fund, STIF. It's a sizable grant. It's really about what we call the last mile shuttle service. So this is going to enhance what TriMet is already providing. We pursued this grant also with the county and others in the county, Milwaukee and West Lynn as well. There's several elements to it, but our element is in Oregon City providing this last mile shuttle service that would provide cross access kind of routes that would get into some of those places like South End where we used to have bus routes and no longer have bus routes, up to the community college and around the community college, Park Place, all those other places that TriMet doesn't serve very well. So that's what this grant is about, and it's about capital. So the county's already acquired a couple of these vans, and then it's about how to operate that. So if you're familiar with Grove Link in Hillsborough, that's probably a close example of what we'll be looking at in the county for these kind of services. This is just a general map, but we've got an interface with Canby Transit, Malala Transit, SMART, anybody that comes to Oregon City or close to it. And like I said, there's multiple grants. There's a grant that also looks at transit routes between Oregon City and Tualatin. So ours is much more wheels on the ground service. There's a couple of other grants that are more like studies about how we would accomplish that. So what are we looking at next? Really, our next project will be a Safe Routes to School grant project, and the 2017 House bill did a good job of funding Safe Routes to School grant programs. So based on the grant criteria, we're looking at application for the Holcomb Boulevard area. As you know, we took that Holcomb Boulevard facility over from the county a few years ago. We've heard a fair amount from the neighborhood about wanting better cross-street access. So trying to figure out what that project really looks like is kind of our next effort. This grant isn't due until the fall. So in the meantime, we've got a meeting with the Park Place neighborhood, but it does look like it would be a grant that we would have a good possibility of obtaining because it's the school itself is a Title I school, so they look at those kind of things. Currently, the speed limit's posted at 40. We've been looking at speed data along Holcomb Boulevard, and yeah, there's no good crossing opportunities along Holcomb Boulevard as it stands today. So, like to fix that. And we're still looking at crash data along there. There's some. You know, whether this project would resolve all those or not. Most of the crash data we have on Holcomb Boulevard is down near the sharp corner just before you get to Redland Road. Whether this project extends that far or not is yet to be determined.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Are these the requirements for a Safe Route to School project?
They're the criteria that they tend to measure. So we get pretty focused on that criteria so that we make sure we're submitting a project that's likely to succeed. So yes. So again, this is just a graphic for familiarizing you with the location. There's a lot of different areas that we've been looking at over the years with missing sidewalks. Our TSP has crossing options, you know, sidewalks that exist and other places where they don't, those kind of things. So we'll be looking at all of that with the neighborhood in mind, as well as our own understanding of that boulevard.
Is Gaffney Lane Elementary a Title I school?
Not anymore. It was when we applied for the Malala Avenue funds, but I understand that changed, at least last time we talked about it, which has been a while, but unless something has changed there. But so we're meeting again with Park Place neighborhood next Monday, and we'll kind of open that up for their thoughts and ideas about the boulevard and be there to listen and plan accordingly.
Okay.
So that's all I have.
Questions? I have one for Mr. Conkle. There's a statutory window where cities have the opportunity to withdraw from TriMet. Can you let us, I don't expect to answer it tonight, but can you find out and let us know when that window opens and when it closes again?
Yep, we can look into that.
Part of the discussion today at the meeting I was at was that Sandy withdrew from TriMet about 10 years ago and have actually dramatically increased the transit opportunities inside Sandy with the same amount of money that their business were paying to TriMet. Interesting. Given the geographical complexities of Oregon City, it might be something we might want to at least take a look at.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any citizen comments?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll remind you, citizens are allowed 3 minutes to present information relevant to the city, but not listed as an item on the agenda. So we have, is that it?
Yes, just one.
Father Time, Mr. Gifford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. My name is William Gifford, and I live in Oregon City. I wanted to bring to the Commission and listeners' attention. I serve on the Oregon City School District Bond Oversight Committee, and they are announcing the groundbreaking for 2 new middle schools. We're building 2 new middle schools while revamping one in Oregon City, and the Ogden groundbreaking is going to be on April 23rd, and well, it's May. I'm sorry. It went sideways on me. I know my clock is ticking. I'm sorry. Oh, there it is. Gardner Middle School groundbreaking is on March 11th at 3 p.m. So I apologize for the delay.
Will you make sure the district sends us invitations to those 2 things electronically, not by email?
I think that's a good idea. I'd be happy to make sure that happens.
Thank you.
You're probably on the list anyway. One last thing that I wanted to make crystal clear is that I think y'all are aware of how much I love this city and work hard for this city. And I want to say that I have the greatest amount of respect for our staff. Their professionalism, their integrity is I can't even say above average because it's so far above average that it's incalculable. I think the team that our city manager has put together has, even though he lost Harno, the rest of the staff,
Semi-lost part.
yeah, the rest of the staff, I have no criticisms of whatsoever. The fact that colleagues occasionally have differences of opinion, I think that's a healthy environment, but I just want to let you all know that I have the greatest amount of respect for our staff.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. And following up on that, I will remind folks that we're doing our State of the City address next Tuesday, the 25th, and for the first time in I don't know how long, we're doing it in the evening so that citizens can actually come versus just the business owners. We are going to take questions from citizens at large through our social media sites, or you can email Kristen Brown at orcity.org, and Mr. Tom Guile is going to be asking questions from the citizens. We're also taking questions from the business community, and Mayor Dan Fowler will be asking me those questions. I've asked staff not to give me the questions in advance because I think I can answer them without having to study. So beyond that, it's free to attend if you aren't going to have dinner, and I'm understanding now that dinner is now closed. So feel free to come and hear what we have to say. With that, we'll move on. Everybody okay with the agenda? All right, then we'll go straight to public hearings. PC 20-025, Forest Edge Department Stabilization. Ms. Turway.
Thank you very much. This proposal is for installation of stabilization measures and emergency access road in a connection to some general site work. Assistant City Attorney Carrie Richter is going to do some legal disclosures, and then I'll just do a short intro for you.
Thank you. Mayor and Commissioners, tonight's proceeding, you will recall when we were here last time, you all closed the record. And so the only thing to do tonight is deliberate unless you wish to reopen the record and take more testimony. The difficulty with doing that is our timeline does not allow us to do that.
So is this a public hearing or not?
It is. You are wrapping up a public hearing, but there does not need to be a public hearing tonight.
So I'm not opening the public hearing?
You are not opening the public hearing unless you want to.
No, I do not.
No, I would want to do that. Heaven forbid. So where we sit now is we are in a continued hearing with the record closed. It is for you to deliberate. Before we get into that deliberation, I want to ask the commissioners if they have had any ex parte contacts or visited the site since the last hearing.
No.
I drove through the upper site, but I didn't get access to the lower site, and I didn't talk to any staff.
Nothing since the last hearing. As I reported before, I did see the site at that time and speak with a member of the community.
Does anybody in the audience wish to question the commissioners about these disclosures? Seeing none, I will turn it over to Ms. Turway.
All right. So just a general recap. Again, this is for some stabilization measures. Primarily, those include installation of 14 dewatering wells, as well as installation of a stormwater management system on the lower portion of Forest Edge Apartments. The idea is that it would reduce some of the groundwater, which caused the last landslide. And so it should reduce a risk of future landslides in the area. This application does not include reoccupancy of any of the units. Although it could be a step in that direction. The authority to reoccupy the units is the city building official and his authority alone. All right, so we have criteria that we review. They're listed on the screen. Most of the criteria that we've been talking about is in Chapter 1744 of the Oregon City Municipal Code. We provided a staff report for you at the last meeting, and it included both an approval with conditions option as well as a denial based on a finding on one particular criteria. At the last commission meeting, the commission identified 2 potential conditions of approval that would be added to the recommendation by staff of approval. They're listed on the screen. At this point, since the record is closed, staff is here to support you in whatever way we can during your deliberation.
Let's go back to the packet, and if you want to speak, please push your button. Why is this not working? I got Commissioner Lyle Smith on one page and Frank O'Donnell on another page. Why is it not the same?
It's because Rachel's just logged in on the first item, not on this item.
Why.
Oh, you're not on this item?
So Frank, it is.
Oh, okay. Commissioner O'Donnell. Sorry.
So did you want to speak on this?
Not yet. No.
So I have self-deliberated on this to great extent. And it's not, the deliberation did not include considerations of affordable housing and did not include considerations of putting the property back on tax rolls. That's meaningless in this event. What is important is the safety of our citizens. So, as the record and public comment has shown, the issue at hand is not simply the continued operation of the 14 mitigation wells. This is an if-then proposition. The continued operation of the well system will allow the redevelopment of the lower campus, a stated goal from the applicant's original request. So I'm going to enter a motion tonight, and in preparing that motion, I gave consideration to the following. And forgive the length of this, but I want everybody to know the background. The legal argument was such that, much as my first inclination is to deny this application, a review of the legal arguments presented by both city staff and Ms. Kelly, is it Hosseini of Miller Nash, demonstrates that Oregon City Municipal Code, Chapter 1744.010, states that risk of geologic hazards is to be mitigated, not eliminated, and that safeguards shall be provided, as referenced in Section C, and refer to Ms. Hosseini's memo to the City Commission dated February 5th, where she summarizes 1744.010 Sections A through D by stating, quote, "The intent and purpose is to reduce the risk of private and public losses, prevent undue hazards, and mitigate risks. It is not to eliminate them completely, as I would prefer, but that is not the law." So from the applicant's original application, we have 2 revealing statements. This project is undertaken, these wells are undertaken to allow the redevelopment of the lower campus. There's no question about it. We can say it's about the wells, but it is to allow the redevelopment of the lower campus. It's stated in their application. However, in addition to the on-site benefits, the statement is made that we anticipate that stabilizing a layer campus landslide block will benefit adjacent areas that have historically been affected by active landsliding, including a fill failure at the Forest Edge upper campus and the Bear Hill apartments, which sit on the cliff over top. The lower campus is situated such that its stability promotes the stability of uphill adjacent areas. So the motion background information, that which I considered in the motion that I will put forth tonight, a very detailed motion. 1, the applicant's geotech firm, Geodesign, states the 14 existing wells are removing water at 5 gallons per minute, but they're capable of 25 gallons.
Oh, Frank, so there's 10 existing wells and 4 that they're agreeing to put in the next.
No, there's 14.
There's 14.
Oh, I thought we added 4 in the last.
There are 14 on site already, and then draft condition approval was to add additional 4 for total.
Excuse me, I apologize. Go ahead.
There are 14. The applicant's geotech firm, Geodesign, states that the 14 existing wells represent a safety factor of 1.3. Now, in civil engineering, that's a good safety factor to start with. That's an acceptable safety factor in civil engineering. Oregon City's geotechnical engineer recommends approval. So we're faced with that. And during a physical tour of the site, Oregon City's engineer, Josh Wheeler, stated that building permits would be issued for this site under today's criteria. So I have to consider that. The evaluation standards applied to this proposal should be consistent with the previous approval of the Bear Hill Apartments mitigation action, which, as the gentleman stated, I believe was $1,200,000 worth of retaining wall. The applicant, to his credit, has offered to increase the number of wells from 14 to 18. If you do a simple ratio, if the 14 well safety factor is 1.3, an increase of 18 to 14 wells would increase the factor to approximately 1.7, which is extremely high. An independent power source provides for ongoing operation during power failure. What more can you ask? The applicant has offered to install an early warning audio and visual signal in the event of an agreed upon soil saturation point as detected by, and we'll say activity in the wells, I believe is what we've agreed upon. And as previously stated, stabilization of the lower campus serves to stabilize both the upper campus and the Berry Hill apartments. Those were all the self-deliberation things that I reviewed, and as a result of that, when I make my motion, you will see what that motion is. I'll leave it up for further discussion.
Let's have the motion.
The motion is this, and it's a 7-point motion. It's very complex because I'm interested in the safety of our citizens. I don't feel we could win this in an ALUBA hearing, and I feel what my goal was is to provide the maximum safety for our citizens. So I will move to conditionally approve GLUA 190008, including but not limited to these conditions. 1, the applicant will increase the number of active wells from 14 to 18. 2, all wells will have an isolated backup power source to be used at a threshold point to be mutually determined by city staff and applicant. 3, an audio-visual alarm will be installed, activated by inputs provided by the wells at a threshold to be mutually agreed upon by city staff and applicant. 4, a mutually approved city applicant stormwater system shall be installed with the discharge at a mutually approved location and the pipe situated below ground to prevent tampering. And that comes as a result of the tour and seeing what's there currently, which will not suffice. 5, we provide a new internal emergency roadway system, which was an existing condition. 6, the ongoing maintenance of the above listed system shall remain the responsibility of the owner of record unless other arrangements are made. And finally, system status reporting between ownership and Oregon City shall be arranged at a mutually agreeable interval. That is my motion in total.
Along with all the other conditions recommended in the staff report?
Along with conditions recommended in the staff report. Thank you for that addition.
Is there a second?
Pardon?
What?
That's the end of my...
Yeah, is there a second? You gonna have questions?
I don't know that I want to second it if I can't ask my questions.
Well, ask your questions then, Commissioner.
So I want to understand the threshold language that you added. Can you go over that again and explain?
Well, the threshold would be best explained by their own geotech engineer as water levels in the well. And if they want to be more specific, I would invite them to come forward and give that.
No, I can't. We're at the public hearing.
Okay. Sorry about that.
I can add some to that. So in the existing condition of approval number 1, it talks about the recorded dewatering system operation and maintenance covenant. And so in that, there's some agreements as to when people will be notified and things like that. So it is recognized in the draft staff report already.
Yeah, there's an existing system and it has a name of its own which notifies people. This would, by the same token, provide an audible and visual alarm,
right,
rather than a series of calls.
I guess I'm just trying to understand where your motion is different than the list of conditions that we've already reviewed and including these additional ones.
It's much more specific.
Okay.
Much less streamlined. I wanted to make sure that we had nailed down every item that we could and that we and the applicant are in agreement on that.
Do we know that the applicant is willing or able to do these conditions, these additional, more specific?
They are.
They are. Okay. I'll second the motion.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Commissioner Smith, you got anything for us?
Nope.
Call roll.
Commissioner Rocky Smith?
No.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Dan Holliday?
Aye. Motion carries. We shall move on. PC 20-028. If you guys want to take a second and get out, you're welcome to do that now.
That didn't sound.
They got the point. PC 20-028, continuance of AP 19-01, appeal of two-lot minor petition in the R10 dwelling zone. Are we asking for another continuance?
We are. The applicant asked for a continuance in response to a request from the appellant to continue. So the request is to continue the hearing to March 18th.
And this puts at abeyance the 120-day rule?
We're fine.
Okay. So is there a motion to continue?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Call a roll.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith.
Aye.
Mayor Dan Holliday.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
There we go.
There we go.
I hit record instead of start. There we go. All right, you're good.
All right. So on to general business. PC 20-027, opportunity to comment on proposal to designate Buena Vista Social Clubhouse located at 1601 Jackson Street, the National Register for Historic Places. Before I introduce Ms. Turway and Mr. Robertson, I have something to say, and that is that I am very unhappy, disappointed that Commissioner McGriff did not give us any kinds of collegial heads up that this was coming before us, that we were totally blindsided by it, except for the email from staff that said that the application had been submitted. So any other time, I would expect myself, which I regularly do, and any other commissioner, that if they're going to be doing something that's going to come before the commission, that they at least give us a heads up. So with that, Mr. Robertson, Ms. Turley.
Thank you very much. All right. So the city did receive a nomination for designation of the Buena Vista Clubhouse for the National Register of Historic Places. The National Register is a list of significant places. It is primarily honorific. However, if you're designated, that does put you in line to get some grants or to be applicable to apply for grants. It does not give results in local historic designation. It's a separate list. The city does have a review process for demolition of any structures that are on the National Register, though. And this is a process that's administered by the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO. All right, so the purpose of this presentation is to do two things. One is to review the nomination, and then two, decide if you want to comment. If you want to comment, we'll have to figure out exactly the mechanics of how you comment and what you say and who will write it, because it's due soon. The purpose of commenting is that the idea of if it gets designated or not is based on criteria. It's very narrow focus criteria. They're listed on the screen. So you can comment on the criteria if you want. Because we're a certified local government, Historic Review Board has already done the technical analysis to see if technically it is eligible or not. So you are not bound to comment, and those are the criteria they're looking at. You can comment on those criteria, you can comment on other things, but just know that their purview is going to be based around those criteria. We are just before the hearing. There's going to be a hearing next Thursday. Comments are due on Tuesday. And so if the commission...
Are they taking comments at the actual hearing?
There will be a hearing as well, yes.
Okay.
But they encouraged us to give them to them by Tuesday so they could email everybody so that they'll have the opportunity to read them first. But staff will certainly attend the hearing as well. And then after that, it'll go to the National Park Service for a secondary review. The application was made based on a premise that the building is associated with events that made a significant contribution to broad patterns in our history. I'll tell you a little bit more details about that. I'm going to read, I'm sorry for the long sentences on the screen, but there's really three main points. One is that the structure's association with civic and social events that demonstrate a significant pattern of events within the Buena Vista neighborhood and greater McLaughlin neighborhood. Number two, it is the only non-residential building that remains from the Buena Vista neighborhood and thus stands as a surviving example of civic activity in the Buena Vista neighborhood before it was absorbed into the greater McLaughlin neighborhood. And three, the building retains integrity as it has been minimally altered since the period of significance. Also important to note, the period of significance is 1930 to 1968. As we know, the structure is located on Atkinson Park. It was moved to the park in 1930, thus the start of the period of significance, although the structure itself is older than that. Here's just a couple images of the structure. It has been minimally altered, although there have been some alterations.
As I understand it, it's two buildings that were combined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it has some seams from when it was relocated. There's three major seams as well. So the period of significance is 1930 after it got moved to the site.
Okay.
Here's a layout of the structure, which is basically a meeting room and a kitchen with a restroom. And I want to tell you a little bit more about the group itself because it plays into the significance of the building. The group itself bought land for the park, made a park, moved the building to the park. They also did a lot of other things in Oregon City. They were initially created to add infrastructure to this part of Oregon City, which was physically or geographically isolated a little bit. So some of their first projects were looking at building a bridge, installing street lighting. There was some street cleaning, but they also did a lot of other social events and clubs, and they had a boy band, all sorts of things. And that was between their period of significance. Youth. It said boys band in the thing. So there, you can see on the map that the neighborhood Buena Vista was its own special area. It's highlighted in the blue. You can see where it is in relationship to now the McLaughlin neighborhood, which it is a part of now. So these are the criteria. I'm not going to go into them in great detail, but the criteria itself basically ask, is it important? Was it important to the development of our history, our social history, and did they do a good job explaining that? Did they use the right facts? Is everything correct? And do they have the right supporting documentations? And so that's what Historic Review Board took a look at. Also, PRAC made a recommendation on it as well, which was also included in your packet. One thing I want to add is that you did receive an email today from Ms. Carla Laws. So that's also, I want to acknowledge that and add that into the record as well. So the first question is if you want to comment or not. And if you do want to comment, what do you want to say in the comments, and who do you want to be responsible for writing the comments? If I write them, who wants to approve them, or do you want a single city commissioner to write them? How do you want the mechanics of those comments to go? We don't have a process for how we review nominations, and so I'd recommend just using the general hearings process, so taking testimony and limiting it to 3 minutes.
Okay, so I have at least one on my thing. Is that upset it? Mm-hmm. Mr. Maybe.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm primarily just making myself available if you have any questions. I don't know if it picked up, but the boy bands thing was a youth group band, not, the 90s and 2000s version of boy band. But you're correct, there is a seam in the building, and the minimal alterations that were mentioned were the stage area and then the kitchen restroom area. It was 2 square houses that were just stitched together initially. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just ready to answer if you have any particular questions about the application or any of the other information.
Commissioner Smith.
I won't talk about this in great depth, but I would recommend if the city wants to make, well, I would recommend the city make no comment. I plan on being on that at that meeting. I will be making comments at that meeting. Others will, I'm sure. So I would hope that the commission would just leave it at that. Because if the comments from this commission, I mean, if this commission was going to make comments, I kind of feel like I know what the comments would be. So let it go forward on its merits and see what happens. I kind of take some issue with the mayor's point about not knowing about this. This was very clear in the last meeting that this commission had, where they didn't support funding this in any way, because this group said, we're taking this to the National Heritage Group and we're going to get this put on there. And I said it, Denise said it, and this group said it. So that was clear from that meeting way back. No one should be surprised by that. And so if you want to, I mean, if it's your hope to destroy this building, then make a comment and put it on record that you want to do that. If not, make no comment. I want to say just one last thing. My father and my two uncles grew up on 15th Street in a little house. My grandma passed away in January. This was her neighborhood. And it even means more to me now, that building. It's part of the neighborhood. It's part of the identity of that place. And everyone that knows me knows that I get very emotional about saving buildings. And it's not just Oregon City. When I do my talks in Portland at the White Eagle Saloon, I talk about it every month. There's pictures of that White Eagle Saloon wherever I go in at night. It's a 1905 building. And every time I do a talk there, I look on the walls and I see pictures of the history of that place. And I can look and I can see a glass case in a photograph from 1905 that's still sitting in that building today. When these buildings go away, or when they're neglected to the point that there is no choice other than to demolish them, it's not just a building that's lost. It's the history of a place. It's a history of people that built this town. It's a history of who we are. And that is not okay. And so I know that some people on this commission don't want to actually see that building demolished. There might be one. I don't know that. But if the intent of this commission is to really destroy our history, then flat out say it tonight. And if it's not, just let it go.
Commissioner Lasmith.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any questions for Mr. Mabee.
Oh, sit. Okay.
This is such a loaded topic, so I have several things to cover. First of all, regarding the application, I think the criteria will be met. I would be shocked if the review committee actually denies it. And therefore, I have no issue with the application or the contents within the application, or the fact that it could be a National Register site. My frustration lies with the Friends group, because I too was surprised by this, because I thought in our meeting that we came away with an understanding that the Friends group was going to work on a work plan of possible next steps, something more with more substance that the City Commission could consider when talking about the future of the building and what we could possibly do with it, just to put some more meat on the bones for example, and I thought that was the path we were going forward. The only reason I wasn't supporting at that time a national register application and all of that was because I wanted to make sure we were really clear and had a plan and some just more structure on what was a possibility for this building. And ideally knowing that this friends group was going to compromise and work with the city on moving this forward. So that's where I thought we were at. And for those reasons, I too was surprised by the notification that the application had been submitted. I was surprised that Commissioner McGriff did not let us know that she was part of that application. It did feel like we were kind of stabbed in the back. And so I just want to be very clear about that. If she were here, I would actually probably ask her to recuse herself since she was an applicant and not be part of this discussion. So I just want to be very clear of why I was frustrated, and I think that there's some shared frustration with maybe a miscommunication on where we thought we were at versus the actions taken. But we are where we are. So for the record, I never said that I wanted to destroy the building. In fact, I've been totally on the fence about it because I understand that once you destroy something like that, it's gone and you've lost. There's no turning back from that, and that's such a permanent thing. And I've never felt fully comfortable with that. I've never been there. I've approached this all along as trying to compromise and try to find some way to move this forward without spending $1 million on a small building when we have no plans for it. We don't know what we're going to do with it. I mean, there's a whole list of concerns that were all actually documented in the memo from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. At least they went through the bulleted list of all of the reasons of why we were wanting a work plan and wanting to have more discussions about this. So concerns relating to the deferred and backlog maintenance of the Parks Division, questions about the future use of the facility, questions about the long-term operations of the building, discussion about the operation costs versus revenue projections, and a suggestion that there would be a business plan prior to any investments and development. So I agree with I have all of those same concerns that the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, they voted to support this. But clearly they had a discussion and raised all of those issues and put them in this memo. And those are all of the concerns that we had, and those concerns haven't gone away, which is why I thought we were going to try to work on this a little bit more again and try to talk about where this could go before we moved into this place. So going forward, I hope that if this is successful, the application, that we can get some great grant money and we can come to some compromised and good use of taxpayer dollars on how we move this project forward. I imagine it will probably move forward. And I wasn't ever fully against that to begin with. I just wanted more meat on the bones of what the plan was going to be before we charted off and committed to the city to what I have a feeling is going to be a very long process and lots of discussions about where this is going to end up. So regarding the comments on the application, I will agree with Commissioner Smith that I don't think it's a fruitful conversation for the city to lay out all of the reasons of why we're concerned. I listed them all. I'm not sure that the proper venue for vetting that is with the local group that's reviewing the application. I think the application is going to go through, so I agree that we should just let the process go. I don't necessarily feel like the city commission needs to make more of a statement, but I'm sure others can chime in on that.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Well, in the interest of time, I'm not going to restate everything that Commissioner Lyle Smith so eloquently just stated. I will say that I feel that this review is going to be of a historical nature only. There'll be no consideration of financial implications. I have thought that maybe a solution would be, because when the time comes and this commission has to vote as to whether they would support it financially, I've already stated where I'm at. I've got a Parks Department that's $20+ million in the hole. I've got other things going on, and I've got a relatively small group of people that want to promote this building, and they're welcome to it. And in fact, my feeling about it is quite honestly this. I take a lesson from this Willamette Falls Legacy project where they sat before us and talked about a third party, perhaps the Friends of the Buena Vista House, taking over management and fundraising and everything else about it and make it yours. And I'm fine with that if that becomes a solution, because that's something that was called to our attention by the Willamette Falls Legacy project. So that's kind of the long and short of it. Everybody knows where I stand. I think it's fruitless to go there and talk about anything. I think it'll stand the test of historical interest, even at the most basic level, which is the level you're applying at. But as far as ongoing financial support, that matter will be decided by this commission at a future date. And I do wish you well in your ability to get grants and succeed with the project. Yep. And I don't know where Commissioner Smith feels I'm at. I wasn't interested in knocking it down either. If you guys can succeed with it, good for you.
So I have one question. And that is, in the discussions we've had previously, you guys have been pretty adamant that that you want it restored and be open to the public and to be usable. Are you backing off that at all?
No.
Okay. Well, then you know where I stand.
Yeah.
The city doesn't have a need for another meeting space. We're building more meeting space as we speak right now. McLaughlin neighborhood certainly has more meeting space than most neighborhoods. There is no plan to operate it, to maintain it. For Commissioner Smith to come now and say, oh my God, this is so important, when he sat for 8 years and watched it decline into the place it's at now.
Oh, don't even go there.
I am going there.
No, because we've already tackled.
Commissioner Smith, you do this to me all the time, and I sit back and take it.
I'll wait
now
for you
it's
to
your
be
turn.
done, and then I'll go.
So the fact is that we don't need this building. Yes, it has some historical significance, but nowhere near the historical significance that Ermitanger House had. And we spent close to $1 million refurbishing the Ermitanger House. So I'm not going to ask the commission to do anything about this particular application. I may or may not testify at the hearing on the 27th. Beyond that, I got nothing more to say.
If I may respond to some of the comments, right? First off, we didn't know that this was going to come in front of you. The Historic Review Board is the comment authority. So bringing it in front of the commission was the staff decision. But in regards to this Commissioner Smith concerns, we are working with the Parks Department. We've been in the building. We've got foundation inspectors in there. We're continuing that process on. The window for opportunity to apply for National Register is an annual window, and it was coming up. We submitted this back in middle of November, I believe. So we needed that as part of developing our work plan. If we get this, we have access to grants. We can start putting things together. Commissioner O'Donnell was very clear about the apples and oranges that were going on our different bids, and we're trying to set up apples and apples. Not only that, but actually the same brand of apples. And so that is an ongoing process. It's continuing to happen with us in the Parks Department. It's just, this is one of the things that we need to get access to developing a work plan. It could be 2 or 3 years before we'd have another opportunity at some of these grants because of their windows and their opportunity cycles. So the opportunity was there. We had somebody who's an expert putting these together, who was willing to step up and available right now. So we took that opportunity. And that's why things are happening at the pace and the timing that they are. It was not an attempt to ambush the city by any means.
Okay. Commissioner Smith.
So on my first term of the city commission, I was in a minority for at least half of that term. During my second half of my first term into my second term, I spent a huge amount of time advocating for the Ermitinger House and focused on that. At the time, the Buena Vista House was not even on the radar to do anything with destroying. In my second term on this commission, it came as an agenda item for demolition, and we stopped it. So I was working on it, but I was also saving another building for the last 10 years. And I will tell you that part of the problem here is a track record of the Parks Department neglecting buildings, whether they're historic or not. Buildings that we own, that we neglect, that we deliberately neglect, to the point that we remove infrastructure, red tag them with no proof of why. This is a problem. It's beyond just saving a historic building. It's our responsibility as caretakers of this city to maintain our buildings. And it's our responsibility to have our staff communicate that to us in a budget, which they have not done for decades in this city, which is why we are in the problem that we are at. So don't lecture me about what I've done for the last 10 years to save these buildings, because I've been working every single damn day doing it.
If I may, any further discussion is just argumentative.
I agree.
Why don't we move on?
Yeah, I'm good with that. So moving on to first reading of ordinance number 20-1004, amending the Oregon City Municipal Code Title 12, Section 12.16.040, camping prohibited, Chief Band.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. This is very simple. The camping ordinance that you already approved, you approved it despite the fact there were a couple things that you wanted added. So we added those two things. One of them, they're from the red line version, the prohibition shall not apply to camp hosts who are permitted to live in appropriate sites on city parks. And the other one was that there was an exception for the city manager. Hereby authorized to adopt regulations under section, you can read it, to allow camping at city parks during special events. Regulation shall place limitations on the number of campers and duration of camping, as well as such other measures the city manager determines are necessary to ensure the safe occupation of the campsite and protection of other city residents. If you have any questions, let me know.
Sure. I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 20-1004.
Second.
Motion and second for discussion. Call roll, please.
Just a second.
First reading. Sorry, Ms. Richter.
Ordinance number 20-1004, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City amending the Municipal Code Title 12, Streets, Sidewalks, and Public Places, Section 12.16-0.040, camping prohibited.
Call roll.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rachel Lyles Smith.
Aye.
Mayor Dan Holliday.
Aye. So moving on, 20-030, resolution number 20-01, revocable long-term permanent obstruction in the right-of-way at 710 3rd Avenue. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor and City Commissioners. My favorite topic, revocable long-term permanent obstructions in the right-of-way. I will just say this, that this applicant notified us on Thursday that they would like to hold this or continue this application until April. I don't have a lot of control over that particular applicant, whether he's really going to be ready in April, but I would like to ask you to continue it until a date certain when we can hear from that applicant when he's ready to move forward.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
One little clarification I'd like to get from the commission tonight on general topics, because I've heard a couple of items from city commissioners, and I want to make sure we're clear about this, because I want to bring you what? Two things. One, I've heard we should bring these forward sooner so that the applicant hasn't expended a lot of funds, so that you're feeling like your decision is influenced by the amount of effort that they put into that. That's one thing that I've heard. The other thing that I've heard is we really don't want to hear these until we resolve the Kenema neighborhood encroachment issue. This is generated, this is a new one, first of all, different than the existing one. So it's a new one, unbuilt, trying to get an applicant who would likely move forward with land use approvals in the process. This particular applicant went through the Historic Review Board approval process, but there's three other significant land use approval processes that it takes a fair amount of effort and investment in to get accomplished. So for me, it was back to, ooh, should we bring this or should we not bring this? And I'd like to hear from the commission their preference so that I don't bring something and have a problem with that.
Well, let me answer for myself. One, I think if it is a existing house, existing infrastructure, yeah, let's hold off on those until we, resolve Kenema holistically. If it's a new building application, I think we need to hear those because I don't want to stop folks from being able to do their work based on something like this. So I'm not sure, I didn't really look at this very hard. I'm not sure what the whole issue is here, but if they want to move it till April or May, that's totally up to them and I'm fine with that.
Well, for me, I don't want to hear any of them until we do all of them. I don't want to create more havoc in an area that's already suffers from havoc. I agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. The pressure's on you, Mr. Lewis, to get the issue wrapped up with Kenema.
Okay, I can count, so I know where we're at.
Can I just clarify one thing? Understood. But this is only for Kenema, correct?
Right.
So if I get a new house in Park Place, where we can bring that. This is strictly focused on Kenema.
Yeah, I think the stuff in Kenema is really all bound together. Now, there's certainly some stuff on the bluff and some other places in town where if we discover it or if it comes to our attention or they ask for it, then let's hear those.
Okay, so we're restricting this just to Kenema.
Yes.
And if we have other ones pop up in the city, we'll deal with those.
Yes.
As we historically have.
So
okay, thank you for the
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I don't think we need anything.
That's good enough. I appreciate the clarification because I forgot.
All right, fine. Then, does anybody have an issue with the consent agenda?
No.
No. I'll move to approve.
Second.
Call roll.
All right. And Commissioner Rocky Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Dan Holliday?
Aye. Okay, so we're on to communications.
Chief Band will be giving an update on the...
Chief Band?
Okay.
Pretty pictures?
Yeah, I got some pictures.
You got some of those lifty things?
So, getting asked more and more about the building, just want to give you kind of a quick update. The pace of construction, or at least what you can see, it is really moving. So the envelope is complete. We have all the CLT up and the ceiling is up as well. Today, they literally put the last, what you're looking at is the front entrance right there, and you're looking right through your commission chambers. What they just put in is kind of in the area that the guy you see there in the orange vest, there's 3 panels there that are about 10 feet high that are CLT, and you've got to see them, they're kind of special, but that's going to be the backdrop for the commission. Can you go to the next one?
Yeah, you've got it right here.
Oh. I can go to the next.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so now you're looking back in the direction that you were just looking from. So the scale is not good because it was just an iPhone photo. It's bigger than that looks, but that is basically, you're going to be sitting at the dais right there looking out so that those windows you see there, I think it's 25.5 feet high right there. So the scale, it's a really pretty space. And we'll have screens, obviously, to kind of measure how much light comes in and out. This is just a shot now. This is if you're standing at the police window to get help. There's going to be a wall toward the back there, but one of the things you'll see when you go into that space is there's a lot of those ceilings, and a lot of that space are that high. And one of the cool things about CLT is you're looking at the ceiling. You don't have to pay to put any kind of a drop ceiling or anything like that. That is what you're going to be looking at in the ceiling. And then another cool thing about, one of the things our employees really wanted was natural light in the building. And so the almost length of that building, there's windows up in what is almost the middle, and you got to kind of see it to just see how pretty this building is really going to be. One little thing that, we talk about seismic requirements of building. This is what that looks like in action. There's a couple of these shear walls that not all the CLT has that, those steel straps up and down them, and then you see how those are attached at the top to the ceiling panels, and then down at the floor, they're welded down into the concrete, and so some of those walls are connected in that way just specifically for seismic reasons, and that's another shot of the same one. Is that the video one? Yeah, so here's just, that's kind of looking at that record space. I showed you a picture like that a minute ago. And already from the time we did this was, I think, last week, the metal studs that they put those up so fast, and real excited for the public to start seeing this space. And then the last picture I have, this is the installation of that window that was above the doorway to the school. They pulled that out without breaking anything. They had a guy, there's over 1,000 bricks that we specifically had a guy take brick by brick and knock all the mortar off. And so that is going to be built with brick from the old building. Those sort of capstones, or whatever you would call them, represented there, those are the actual stones, the big white ones that were in that actual arch, and they're going to be there. That square you see there is going to be what was on the front of the building is going to be there. And then scale-wise, you can see that's 9.5 feet tall, and I think it's 14.6 long. And then there will be some kind of thick plexiglass on the sides to protect the window. So one neat element is you'll be able to drive by and still be able to see the window that you could always see.
Where is this going to be?
That is going to be kind of at the front of the building in what we'll call the Mount Pleasant Courtyard or Mount Pleasant Plaza. But now you'll be able to look through the window. Rocky, do you have a question?
Yeah, were the light fixed? What happened to the light fixtures?
I'm not sure what to do. We have them. They're very old. I don't think it would work to put here. They would be at eye level, and they stick out quite a way. So I think we're gonna have to find out what to do with them. But I think every time I see them where they're sitting,
don't get rid of them.
Never would. So. Just two other quick things. There's a lot of interest in this building. We have the county commissioners are all coming to tour with some economic development folks from the county tomorrow. I think we're going to have about a dozen people. And there's a lot of interest in CLT. This is the first full CLT building that's been done in Clackamas County. And I don't know if you've heard, but there's some sort of a manufacturing plant that's going in Estacada to make CLT. So there's a lot of interest in the building. We're getting a lot of calls and doing a lot of tours right now. And then one little clarification I talked about, if you're coming down Lynn Avenue southbound, there's going to be a right turn in. We're working on that just to kind of make it easier for people to get into Laura's building and our building. And there was some discussion that we might have to take a tree out. The clarification is, when they told me they were going to have to take a tree out, a tree that they were going to put in, they are not going to put in now. So they're not removing an existing tree. It's just we're going to be putting one tree that was going to go right there is no longer going to go there. That's all I got.
Okay. I had something I was going to say, and I know what I was going to say. So Frank and I am fond of saying, are the only people up here who've actually built things. And normally a building this size to get the envelope, and technically we're not done with the envelope yet because we don't have glass, but just to get the walls and the ceiling on in a stick-built building this size would typically take 3 to 4 months. And this building went up after the foundation was done, in about 5 weeks. So that shows the speed of the CLT. Now, of course, we don't consider all the time that the manufacturer is doing actually making those panels, but to see how fast it went on the ground as they were going is pretty amazing. And so you can see how this kind of construction could be something of the future for us, not only in Clackamas County, but for the wood products industry in general in Oregon. Any questions, comments?
when the time comes, see if you can inspire Mr. John Lewis in the Public Works building for the same performance level.
He came into it.
But did he learn anything?
Anything else?
That's all that I have for tonight.
Okay. I did say that I was out at the East Metro Realtors today. I actually gave some kudos to Mayor Hodson and the City Council in Canby. They have managed over the last couple of years to steal Columbia Distributing from downtown Portland, which is about a 700,000 square foot facility. So they're no longer, Columbia is consolidating all of their distribution into the Pioneer Industrial Park in Canby. Stanton Furniture out of Tualatin is moving into the Pioneer Industrial Park, and Caruso Produce out of Tigard. So these are three major employers that are being taken away from other pieces of the metro area because of the mistaken policies of transportation and crime and homelessness that are prevalent in Portland and the areas closer to it. So while we've beaten them severely in the downtown area, I think we're just getting started in the industrial area up on the hill, and so those are the kinds of things that we can look forward to if we plan properly and we put the infrastructure in place. We can get those kind of employers and keep our people working inside Oregon City. With that, unless somebody else has a comment, we're adjourned.